when you see the most knowledgeable investors in the world buying it at the level they are, the central banks, that's all you should need to see. Their actions certainly tell you that gold and silver are very, very, very important to where we are going ultimately. So while this is a day to rejoice, don't get, I think, thrown off the bull for the...
You're watching Silver News Daily. Subscribe for more.
Did you know that silver just hit a surprising dip? And experts like Andy Sheckman are saying it could be the moment to get in before it's too late. Silver has been on a roller coaster, but this latest price drop might be one of the best buying signals we've seen in years. So why are the experts saying now is the time to buy? Let's break down what's really going on in the silver market and why this could be the perfect opportunity for savvy investors to secure their position.
Optimism and opportunity to some degree on many levels, but what it won't do, in my opinion, is fix our fiscal and monetary problems just yet. Now, look, if Elon Musk comes in and does what he did to Twitter and, immediately, cuts a huge portion of the government. Think about this for a minute. In September, I believe, they added over 780,000 government jobs to skew the numbers, as far as I'm concerned. And even in this last employment report, where it was putrid, they only added 12,000 jobs. But what they really did, and they don't tell you, is that they shed 28,000 jobs from the private sector and added over 40,000 jobs, again, government jobs. And, we're borrowing money to pay for these jobs, and the government just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding. A government that has no profit motive, that doesn't employ, all forms of fiscal sanity and responsibility go out the window when the government is the one creating all of the jobs. These are the kind of things that, if we see those kind of things, then there is really hope and optimism that we can right this ship and start paying down our debt and start, producing more than we consume and not be, in a constant position of adding, a $1 or $2 or $3 trillion to the debt every single year in the form of deficit spending. So ultimately, this is a day to rejoice and to be happy for and to be thankful for, and it is the American spirit. And maybe we've regained a little bit of, at least from a portion of the world anyway. Maybe half the country doesn't think that. I don't know, but it gives me pause for a moment that maybe the credibility of the elections is starting to at least gain a little bit more confidence. And but I don't see it materially changing our problems with the dollar, with our debt, with interest rates. These are things, look, Trump understands the whole concept of bankruptcy, a default, a reset. Could that happen? Yeah, I think it probably could. I think you could see something that is some form of a reset of the system. I don't know what triggers it. I don't know what it looks like, but you have to ask yourself a question. How do we ever pay off this massive, massive debt with the continued fiscal irresponsibility that we have, adding, a few $1 trillion to the debt?
Silver's recent price dip might have left some investors worried, but there's a lot more behind it than meets the eye. In the short term, silver prices often fluctuate due to a mix of factors like market sentiment, short-term trades, and broader economic shifts that might not reflect silver's actual value. In this case, what we're seeing is a classic example of short-term volatility, where the market moves on temporary pressures rather than long-term fundamentals. One of the main drivers of this dip has been investor reactions to recent economic data and interest rate policies. When rates go up, it often makes holding precious metals less attractive because they don't generate yield, unlike certain bonds with savings options. However, this effect is usually temporary, especially for silver, which has intrinsic industrial and monetary value that transcends these short-term fluctuations. Additionally, some large institutions and hedge funds have been engaging in short-term trades to take advantage of price dips, which can create a snowball effect, pushing prices even lower. But here's the twist. Many savvy investors see this as a chance to buy low, capitalizing on what they believe is a temporary dip in a long-term bull market. If we look at recent history, silver has often rebounded strongly after these dips, driven by underlying demand and constrained supply. So while some might see a falling price as a reason to wait, others see it as a rare window to buy in at a discount. And as we'll soon uncover, there are deeper, more lasting factors that make silver a compelling investment in today's economic landscape.
In the system, with stocks and real estate at all-time highs, we have not signaled victory over inflation. They're waving the white flag against inflation. So inflation is here to stay. What you saw today was a knee-jerk reaction. The markets are always very reactionary, and it's laughable how much it is. But you look at the massive short positions that the commercial banks have in London and in New York. Maybe they looked at this as an opportunity to smack it and cover some of these positions. My guess is within a day or two, it'll be right back where it was. The resiliency and the strength of the metals markets has been extraordinary, and the worldwide accumulation won't stop today. In fact, it will continue to grow. And so I think that, yeah, it's better for this country. Putting precious metals and precious metals prices aside, I care less for those, and I say that out of respect for everyone that's ever worked with us and for my own holdings, than I do a world where my kids and yours, done again, your grandkids, I don't have any yet, but you do, grow up in a world where maybe we can talk about things that are more optimistic. And this is a day to celebrate. This is a day to rejoice, as far as I'm concerned. You're bringing, he's bringing all sorts of people into the fray. Former Democrats like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. and bringing in Elon Musk, bringing like the Benjamin Franklin of our time, bringing in all these minds and creating unity, something that the Democratic Party really didn't do. In fact, anything but. They've created divisiveness and lack of unity. To me, that's what it's been. And quite frankly, then again, it's been a real drag being a pessimist the way that I have for the last 4 years. Maybe this will bring...
When we dig deeper, silver's price isn't just influenced by market speculation. It's grounded in strong economic fundamentals that many investors overlook. At the heart of this is the classic supply and demand equation. Silver is unique among precious metals because it serves a dual role. It's both a valuable industrial material and a store of wealth, like gold. This dual demand sets silver apart, especially as its applications in high-tech industries are growing rapidly. On the supply side, silver's production is actually more limited than many realize. Most silver isn't mined directly, but as a byproduct of other metals like lead, copper, and zinc. This means that even if silver demand rises, mining output can't just ramp up to meet it. It's tied to the production of these other metals. As a result, silver's supply tends to be more rigid, amplifying its sensitivity to demand changes. Demand, on the other hand, has been accelerating, driven by its critical role in industries like electronics, solar energy, and electric vehicles. This demand spike is expected to continue as the world pushes toward green technology and renewable energy. All this adds up to a tight supply-demand balance that favors a price increase over the long term, despite the short-term dip we're currently seeing. Understanding these fundamentals is key to recognizing why the recent price drop may just be a short-lived downturn in an otherwise bullish market for silver. As we look ahead, it becomes clearer that the forces driving silver demand could soon outweigh the factors behind its recent decline.
Didn't sweep the house and had this same old partisan deadlock that we've seen for the last several years, where the Republicans held the House and the Democrats the Senate. Nothing substantive ever got done. You never saw anything other than typically people voting along party lines. I would say that if that were the case, it would be not as good for gold as it is with both sides of the House and the Senate belonging to the Republicans so that they will be able to pass legislation. And look, I think from a standpoint of, this is me talking here right now, okay? For me, the reason I wanted Trump to win is that as someone who voted with his feet and left Minnesota, I've had enough of the wokeness and the BLM and the LGBTQ and to last me a lifetime. I wanted to get back to the sanity where people were admitted into colleges and to careers based upon their merit, not upon their race or their color or their gender or their lifestyle. I wanted to find some form of credibility that would be regained in things like the FBI and the DOJ. And I think maybe yesterday we maybe took a step towards renewed faith in our electoral system, things that I've talked about on your show forever that had bothered me. And this election to me, which really bothered me, was not just Trump versus Kamala. And then again, it was Trump versus Kamala, the Obamas, the deep state, the media, every major corporation, every celebrity, every musician, every university, all the social media platforms, except yours and mine and a few others, and even the rhinos, the Republicans that pretended to be Republicans, even the Avengers, for goodness sake. It was just too much in the way.
You didn't mention the World Economic Forum and the UN.
Yeah, and that's just too much. And I like the idea of going back to some form of sanity, and getting rid of this baseless, inflammatory rhetoric, and the moral high ground and all of this nonsense. That to me is why I wanted Trump in office. But look, the truth of the matter is he wants low interest rates. He wants a weaker dollar. He wants lower taxes. All of this is inflationary in the respect that they will spend. We don't have a surplus. Well, we have deficits that will continue to grow. We have inflation that will continue to accelerate, lowering interest rates. With all of the money.
One of the biggest factors behind silver's growing demand is its essential role in industrial applications, particularly in the booming renewable energy and electronics sectors. Unlike gold, which is primarily valued as a store of wealth, silver has a unique place in high-tech industries because of its superior conductivity and reflective properties. This makes it indispensable in everything from solar panels to electric vehicles, industries that are rapidly expanding as the world shifts towards sustainable technology. Take solar energy, for example. Silver is a critical component in photovoltaic PV cells, which are the building blocks of solar panels. The demand for these cells is surging as countries and corporations commit to reducing their carbon footprint. According to recent projections, demand for silver in PV cells alone could reach record highs within the next few years, putting a significant strain on the available supply. Then there's the electronics sector, which uses silver in everything from smartphones to medical equipment. With the rise of the digital economy and the integration of technology into everyday life, silver's applications in electronics are only expanding. This is all happening alongside a growing need for silver in electric vehicles, where it's used in essential components like battery connections and circuitry. These aren't just niche markets. They represent massive, high-growth industries that are projected to sustain their demand for years to come. So, while silver's price might have taken a recent dip, these industrial applications create a robust demand floor that many experts believe will keep prices resilient over the long term. This means that the current drop could simply be a temporary blip in an otherwise upward trend driven by silver's vital role in emerging technologies.
A lot of shifts going on around the world, and I think Trump has a lot of things that he's going to try to remedy and to fix. To me, as crazy as this sounds, our financial indiscretions, our fiscal irresponsibility, and our brain-dead monetary policy are not as important as getting our house in order. And I think you got to start with one thing at a time. It's interesting to think what it will look like if you start to see mass deportations. And you start to see, you wonder, is he going to go after the people that went after him? What does it look like? Is there going to be more divisiveness? Is it going to be unity? What happens when you have half of the country screaming about, deporting these people and about, investigating people like Paul Pelosi? How did he get to be such a damn good investor? Very uncanny, these kinds of things. Is it quid pro quo or is it not? I don't know. Part of me really feels like I hope it is. These people have done things that are very anti-democratic. Watching Nancy Pelosi tear up the State of the Union address was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in my career. These people act as though they're holier than thou, but I will tell you that they're no better than any of the other Republican candidates, Trump included. They all have their secrets. They all have their skeletons in their closet. But, one of the things that I do take a little bit of hope in is that you are seeing this unity where you got Tulsi and you have some and RFK who are Democrats, who are now moving a Kennedy, for goodness sake, moving here with Trump, and you put the right people in the mix. It's the right start. But what we need to do is get back to the fundamentals. Then we can worry about our spending problems. And I think, that's a long way down the road. It really is, as far as I'm concerned. But I guess we'll have to see. I wouldn't for a moment look into today's action as anything other than the commercial banks who are wickedly short on COMEX and the LBMA using this opportunity, and a good one, to knock the hell out of the price of gold and silver under the guise of, renewed optimism to cover some of their shorts. And if things hold true to form, that will just be a buying opportunity for India, China, and Russia and the other countries who are continuing to accumulate commodities in lieu of debt instruments like our U.S. Treasury.
Beyond industrial demand, another powerful driver for silver lies in the complex web of global geopolitics. In times of political tension and economic uncertainty, precious metals like silver and gold become sought after safe haven assets, shielding investors from volatility in traditional markets. But geopolitical factors influence silver in other, less obvious ways, too, especially when it comes to supply chain disruptions and trade policies. For instance, recent trade disputes and sanctions, especially those targeting metal-producing regions, have had far-reaching implications for silver's supply chain. Key silver-producing countries, such as Mexico and Peru, have faced disruptions in mining operations due to political instability, regulatory shifts, and even labor strikes. These supply interruptions not only affect silver's availability, but also add to its cost, making it harder for the market to meet rising demand. Moreover, global trade tensions, particularly between major economies, create uncertainty around metal imports and exports. For example, tariffs or restrictions on metal trade could make it more difficult for companies to secure the silver they need, pushing prices up as industries compete for limited supply. This makes silver not only a safe haven, but also a strategic asset in a world where supply chains are increasingly vulnerable to political events. In short, the influence of geopolitics on silver cannot be understated. As global tensions ebb and flow, silver remains a crucial asset, valued for both its investment appeal and its industrial necessity. These factors combined mean that while silver prices may fluctuate in the short term, the underlying geopolitical landscape keeps silver in high demand, potentially setting the stage for substantial price rebounds in the future.
They don't create any wealth at all. That's right. And they take it through taxation, obviously. And that's the way that they get their money and then things like tariffs and fees and whatnot. But, the majority of all of the tax revenue, in fact, the Congressional Budget Office said that by 2030, if I'm not mistaken, that 100% of that revenue goes just to pay the interest on the debt and mandatory entitlement payments like Social Security and Medicare. And if that be the case, when you realize things like military spending are discretionary, who wants to fund an aging superpower who has been known for going around the world in a coercive manner, using its military apparatus as the arm of the machine? Who's going to borrow us money to fund these kinds of things? And that's kind of the problem, is that, the government is broke, it's insolvent, we're spending more than we're taking in, to the point where we're getting close to the point where tax revenues all of it will be used just to pay these things. So where does the government get more money, unless, I guess, it raises taxes, which it could do, but that ends up leading to kind of a self-fulfilling event where, it slows everything down, and it disincentivizes business and growth. And maybe that's why Deutsche Bank is saying by 2029 they see $4,000 an ounce gold. I think that's very conservative. It'll probably happen before that. And this is with Trump in office. Trump with tariffs are higher than Trump without tariffs, and of course Trump with a unified House and Senate make it that much easier for them to do what all governments, including Trump, have done, and that is to spend and to go deeper into debt, borrow more money and spend. And so, it's through taxation and borrowing, really, where they're able to fund the efforts of the government that have really gotten out of control. So that's why I don't think we'll see a substantive change in the gold bull market. I think, in fact, it's just beginning. And there are
one major piece of the silver story that can't be ignored is the role of monetary policy, particularly the policies of the U.S. Federal Reserve and other central banks around the world. Silver, like gold, is highly sensitive to changes in interest rates and inflation expectations, making central bank actions a key influence on its price. When the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, as we've seen recently, it often pressures silver and other precious metals. Higher rates increase the opportunity cost of holding non-yielding assets like silver, which can cause a short-term drop in prices as investors shift toward income-generating options like bonds. However, this effect is often temporary, especially in today's economic landscape, where inflationary pressures remain high despite rate hikes. In fact, inflation itself is a significant reason why silver maintains its appeal. As prices rise across the board, investors look to precious metals to preserve their purchasing power. Silver, with its dual role as both an industrial and investment metal, becomes especially attractive as a hedge against currency devaluation. While the Fed's actions might impact silver in the short run, inflation concerns continue to drive long-term interest in the metal. Additionally, many experts argue that central banks may soon need to reverse course if the economy slows down too much, potentially cutting interest rates again to stimulate growth. Such a shift could weaken the dollar and renew interest in silver and other precious metals, as they tend to perform well in a low-rate, high-inflation environment. So, while silver may experience volatility in response to central bank decisions, the overall trend suggests that it will continue to be a reliable asset in uncertain times, making the current dip a potential opportunity for forward-thinking investors.
Each year, and the servicing of the debt now outpacing just about everything, and close to $1 trillion a year, or at $1 trillion a year. These are numbers that are so big they're almost impossible to ever address. And even if we balance the budget today, who pays for Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and government military pensions, which they tell us by their own admission are 5 to 6 times higher than the debt that's on the books. So it's not an easy task he has, but it starts. Sorry, banged my mic there with my hand. It starts with getting some form of our culture back. And if anyone understands it, it's you. You're a very principle-oriented person, and I see the way you've raised an amazing family. And they're all very hardworking, regimented, educated people who embrace the values that this country I think, was founded on religion and family and hard work and ethics. And a lot of these things have gone by the wayside. And I think it's not going to be easy. It's going to be bumpy. But I think that's where we start. And I thank God that we have at least that to look forward to. As far as the fiscal problems, look, he brings in the right people, and you see Elon Musk clean house and really reduce the size of government, get rid of all of the restrictions that businesses have, and lower taxes to incentivize more business activity, bring our manufacturing home. It won't be easy. It won't be fast. We'd have to rebuild these manufacturing centers, teach people how to do it. So it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. But my hope is that he makes good on a lot of the promises, and that he can unite the country through his actions, and that we see this trend continue for years to come, not just a 4-year flash in the pan deal. And I am optimistic right now, but it doesn't change at all, at least for now, the reason to continue to own precious metals. In fact, the fuse that was lit to start this precious metals market, largely the debt and the massive accumulation of debt and the irresponsible spending, that hasn't changed. And sadly, I don't think it's going to change under Trump, at least not initially. In fact, they're talking about him increasing by his numbers 7-8 trillion to the debt by what he wants to do. Who knows? I'm just simply saying that, socially, morally, culturally, I thank God he won. But in terms of what it means for people who own gold, I don't think it's changed anything. In fact, I think that is still a trend that is in motion, that I don't see anything that's going to change that at this point.
Inflation is a term we hear constantly these days, and it's a driving force behind the rising interest in silver as an investment. When inflation rates climb, the value of paper currency erodes, and people look for ways to protect their wealth. Silver, much like gold, has long been seen as a hedge against inflation, a tangible asset that holds intrinsic value, unlike fiat currencies, which lose purchasing power as prices rise. But here's the unique advantage of silver. It's accessible to a broader range of investors due to its lower price point compared to gold. This means that when inflation spikes and economic uncertainty looms, both everyday investors and institutional players can turn to silver as a practical, affordable hedge. And unlike paper currency, which can be easily manipulated or devalued by policy, silver's value is grounded in its physical properties and finite supply. Looking back at historical data, we see that silver prices often rally during periods of high inflation. For instance, during the stagflation of the 1970s and the inflationary periods following the 2008 financial crisis, silver prices surged as investors sought to safeguard their wealth. As inflation concerns grow again today, silver is once more drawing interest as a protective asset. So, while silver's price may be temporarily down, the long-term inflationary pressures are expected to bolster its value. For investors concerned about the purchasing power of their cash, silver's affordability and proven track record make it an attractive way to maintain financial security during uncertain times.
Kind of what you said. I read a really interesting quote. I forgot who it is, but I wrote it down on a walk. I tried to talk into my phone. He's a tech guy, a Silicon Valley tech guy. And what he said is great. He said, politicians come and go, but they don't change the rules. Censorship changes the rules. Lawfare changes the rules. Mass immigration changes the rules. I guess you could say the media changes the rules. So the rules have been changed. And that's kind of what I think deep down bothers all of us who grew up, at least in the Midwest, like we did, under, family-based, religious-based fundamentals where, you respected your family, you respected God, you respected the nuclear family, you respected savings and hard work and all of the things that I think made this country great. it seems like a lot of those things, the rules have been changed over the last several years. I think that's really what I think why there are people, even if they can't articulate it, why you have such a big turnout for Trump, because the rules have been changed, and that's not the way this country works. You should be valued by your merit and your effort. I'll never forget my daughter when we were living in Minnesota, and she had a friend, a sweet girl, a little underprivileged, grew up in a broken home, a single mom, and I could hear her come into our house and say to my daughter, "That's your closet." Because her and her sister shared one of those shared walk-in closets in between the two rooms. And it was big. And we had this discussion about, why doesn't everyone get equal things? And the concept of equality, which is kind of this whole deal with the Democratic Party, equality for all, even in the way that FEMA takes care of disasters. It's an equality-based deal, and everything is equality, which in theory sounds great, but it shouldn't be that way. It's about equal opportunity. Everyone gets the same shot at working hard and making your mark on life. Look, I'm not the smartest guy in the room at all, but I outwork most people. I work my butt off to come here and not look like a fool when I'm on your show and on others, and to run a business that my family is proud of. And, I'm not Peter Schiff. He's a hell of an economist, but, I work as hard as he does or harder. That I know. And I think that's what this country's all about. And I think that's what makes so many people angry, where those rules have changed. It's more about your lifestyle. It's more about your religion, your sex, your creed. None of those things, they're all relevant, but not material. I mean, they shouldn't be. It should be about, what did you do to get here? How did you get here? And how hard are you working? And what are your morals? And what are your principles? And are you on time? And you get along with people? And I don't know. I say that too much, but this to me is why I'm excited that we have a change, because another 4 years of that type of destructive capitalistic behavior, I don't know where we would be at the end of 4 years. So let's all be optimistic and hope for the best. But this does not change the monetary side of things. And that's why you need to protect yourself with things like gold and silver.
Looking back at silver's price history, a clear pattern emerges. Silver has repeatedly rebounded after short-term dips, often with considerable gains. When we examine these cycles, we see that silver is highly responsive to both economic shifts and market psychology. After each drop, it has historically rallied, driven by renewed demand and the fundamentals that keep silver in high demand. For instance, during the economic uncertainties of the 2008 financial crisis, silver initially dipped as investors scrambled to liquidate assets for liquidity. But as the dust settled and people sought safer investments, silver experienced a significant upswing, reaching highs that rewarded those who had bought during the dip. Similarly, in the early 2020 pandemic market crash, silver's price fell sharply, but then surged, more than doubling in value within months as investors sought to hedge against economic instability. These past recoveries show that silver has a resilience and a tendency to surge after downturns, often going beyond its previous highs. This bounce-back pattern suggests that what we're seeing now could be another temporary dip in silver's larger upward trajectory. For those who understand this pattern, buying during a dip has proven to be a strategic move. By learning from silver's past performance, we can see why many view today's price drop not as a cause for concern, but as a unique chance to enter the market. If history repeats itself, those who buy during this dip could stand to benefit when silver rallies again.
Those things much more eloquently than I do. That's kind of what I'm getting at in a roundabout way. The debt, the massive amount of debt, the fiscal irresponsibility, the spending, none of that's changing. In fact, it's getting worse. But what Trump offers is hope to regain a piece of our culture that seems to have been whitewashed away over the last 4 years. And One other thing, and then I know you want to talk about the special, and I'll mention that. But I mean, I can think of no better place to start than exposing and completely whitewashing the legacy media, like 60 Minutes, like these. I mean, it's almost election interference what they did. These media stations who do nothing but foment divisiveness, tell half truths, hide the reality, make people look bad. And sway the influence. Like I said, there are a lot of very well-read people that I come in contact with in my daily life that have zero idea what's going on, and I would argue they read and watch the wrong stuff. These are the kind of things that I would like to see exposed, and it's not vindictive as much as it is a feeling of betrayal over the last several years at what has happened with the legacy media, with the CNNs and the CBS and the ABC and all of these stations that we all, and news outlets that we all grew up thinking had our best interest at heart. You have to question if that's really the case. But I think that there's a lot to be optimistic about. But in terms of what Alistair was saying, we are massively indebted. The credit in the system is drying up. The BTFP program expires tomorrow, or today, the 6th, and you have the reverse repo market almost down to nothing. These were the pools of liquidity that helped keep things going over the last year or two that very quickly have drained down to very low levels. This is a debt problem. This is a credit problem, and could very quickly spiral, especially with all of these mortgages that are coming due, these new leases and mortgages that are coming due this year and next in a higher interest rate environment. The Fed tried to lower interest rates by 50 basis points 6 weeks ago, and the 10 and the 30 are up over 60 basis points over that same period of time. That's the market's way and the bond market's way of saying, no, that's not how it works. You can't always just go to inflation and lower interest rates when you have this debt obligation. We're not going to continue to finance it at these rates. Well, that's a problem. So, we're not out of the woods we're 4 miles deep in the woods in terms of financially, but optimism regarding everything else, absolutely.
Andy Schechtman, a respected voice in the precious metals industry, has been closely watching these market movements, and his insights are invaluable for understanding why now might be a perfect time to consider silver. Schechtman argues that silver's fundamentals remain robust, and he sees this recent dip as more of a discount opportunity rather than a downturn. According to Schechtman, the industrial and investment demand for silver is only set to increase, creating a squeeze that could drive prices higher in the near future. Schechtman also points out that silver's unique position as both an industrial and precious metal makes it particularly well-suited for today's economic climate, with silver being essential in high-growth areas like renewable energy and electronics. The long-term demand doesn't appear to be slowing down. Moreover, Schechtman emphasizes that inflationary pressures and monetary policies are likely to continue favoring silver as a store of value, especially if central banks adjust their policies to counteract economic slowdowns. In essence, Schechtman's analysis suggests that while silver's price may be experiencing a temporary dip, the underlying factors supporting its value are stronger than ever. For those looking to safeguard their assets and potentially capitalize on future growth, Schechtman believes this could be a rare buying opportunity. His expert perspective helps frame the current market situation not as a setback, but as a strategic entry point for investors.